The contractions were hitting every 90 seconds when my husband Marcus walked out of the delivery room, muttering about needing coffee, and never came back. 8 hours later, as I held my newborn daughter alone, Dr. Patterson approached my bedside with an expression that would change my life forever. "Mrs. Chen, there's something you should know about the insurance papers your husband signed yesterday. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." 6 months before that devastating night at Riverside General Hospital, I believed I was living the life every woman dreams of achieving. My name is Sarah Chen, and at 32 I had constructed what appeared to be a perfect existence built on careful planning, strategic decisions, and unwavering dedication to creating stability for the family I was preparing to expand. Our home in the prestigious Willowbrook subdivision represented everything Marcus and I had worked toward during our 8 years of marriage. The colonial-style house featured 4 bedrooms, hardwood floors, and a nursery I had spent months preparing with imported Italian furniture and hand-painted murals depicting scenes from classic children's literature. Every detail reflected the meticulous attention I applied to all aspects of our shared life. My career as a senior project coordinator at Meridian Healthcare Systems provided both financial security and personal fulfillment. I managed complex medical software implementations across multiple hospital networks, coordinating between technical teams, medical professionals, and administrative leadership to ensure seamless transitions that improved patient care delivery. The work demanded precision, communication skills, and the ability to navigate competing priorities while maintaining focus on outcomes that genuinely mattered. Marcus worked as a regional sales manager for a pharmaceutical distribution company, a position that required frequent travel but provided substantial commission-based income that complemented my steady salary. His charismatic personality and natural relationship-building abilities had made him one of the top performers in his division, earning recognition and bonuses that allowed us to maintain our comfortable lifestyle while building savings for our growing family. Our marriage had developed through 7 years of shared experiences, mutual support, and aligned goals that created what I believed was unshakable partnership. We had met during graduate school, both pursuing advanced degrees that would enhance our professional prospects while building foundation for long-term success. Marcus completed his MBA in marketing while I earned my master's degree in healthcare administration, educational investments that positioned us well for career advancement and financial stability. The decision to start a family had emerged through careful discussion and planning that reflected our collaborative approach to major life decisions. We established financial targets, researched optimal neighborhoods for child-rearing, and created detailed timelines that would allow us to balance career development with parental responsibilities. My pregnancy represented the culmination of strategic planning that would complete our vision of successful adult life. Throughout my pregnancy, Marcus demonstrated attentiveness and involvement that reinforced my confidence in our partnership. He attended every prenatal appointment, assembled nursery furniture with enthusiasm, and read parenting books with the same dedication he applied to professional development. His excitement about becoming a father appeared genuine and consistent, creating shared anticipation for the changes our daughter would bring to our established routines. My support system extended beyond my marriage to include professional colleagues, neighborhood friends, and extended family members who provided encouragement and practical assistance throughout my pregnancy. Linda Morrison, my closest friend and colleague at Meridian Healthcare, had navigated her own motherhood journey 3 years earlier and served as an invaluable source of advice and reassurance during moments of uncertainty or concern. The relationship with my mother-in-law, Patricia Chen, had required patience and diplomatic navigation over the years, but pregnancy seemed to soften some of the tensions that had occasionally surfaced during family gatherings. Patricia expressed genuine excitement about her first grandchild and offered to provide childcare support that would allow me to maintain career momentum while ensuring quality family time. My own parents, Robert and Helen Martinez, lived across the country in Phoenix but maintained regular communication and planned to visit for an extended stay following the birth. Their marriage of 38 years provided a model of partnership and mutual support that I hoped to replicate in my own relationship. They had built the first indication that something fundamental had shifted in my marriage, emerged during what should have been one of our most celebratory moments. At 36 weeks pregnant, I had successfully completed the final phase of the Riverside Medical Network implementation project, a complex undertaking that had consumed 8 months of intensive coordination between multiple hospital systems and technology vendors. The project conclusion represented a significant professional achievement that would likely position me for promotion to senior director upon my return from maternity leave. The implementation had been completed ahead of schedule and under budget, earning recognition from hospital administrators who typically reserved praise for outcomes that exceeded their most optimistic expectations. My project team celebrated with a lunch gathering where colleagues expressed appreciation for leadership that had guided them through technical challenges while maintaining focus on patient care improvements. When I arrived home that evening, expecting to share this professional milestone with Marcus, I found him seated at his laptop in our home office, surrounded by scattered papers, and wearing an expression of concentrated concern that immediately shifted the atmosphere from celebration to unease. He glanced up briefly when I entered, acknowledging my presence with a distracted nod before returning his attention to whatever documents had captured his focus so completely. "The Riverside project finished today," I announced, hoping to redirect his attention toward the achievement that had occupied so much of our shared conversation over recent months. The final testing results exceeded all performance benchmarks, and Dr. Richardson said it was the smoothest implementation the network had experienced. Marcus looked up again, this time making eye contact, but his response lacked the enthusiasm I had expected from someone who had listened to countless updates about project challenges and milestones. "That's great, Sarah. Really good timing with the baby coming soon." His tone carried an undertone of distraction that suggested his mind remained focused on whatever concerns had created the paper trail spread across his desk. The interaction struck me as strange, given Marcus's typical interest in my professional accomplishments and his understanding of how much this particular project had meant to my career development. Throughout our marriage, he had been genuinely supportive of my ambitions, celebrating successes and offering encouragement during challenging periods. His subdued response to this significant achievement felt inconsistent with established patterns of mutual celebration and shared pride. "Is everything all right?" I asked, settling into the chair across from his desk despite the physical discomfort that standing for extended periods had begun to create. "You seem preoccupied with something important." Marcus gathered several of the papers, straightening them into a neat pile before responding. "Just some work stuff. Nothing urgent, but you know how complex these pharmaceutical distribution contracts can get." He closed his laptop and stood, effectively ending the conversation, before I could ask follow-up questions about the nature of his concerns. Successful middle-class life, through hard work, careful financial management, and unwavering commitment to family priorities. The months leading to my due date passed with increasing anticipation and final preparations that reflected our shared commitment to providing optimal environment for our daughter. Marcus and I attended childbirth classes together, toured the hospital facilities, and completed birth plan documentation that outlined our preferences for labor and delivery procedures. My professional responsibilities required careful transition planning to ensure project continuity during my maternity leave. I worked closely with Linda and other team members to document processes, delegate responsibilities, and establish communication protocols that would maintain momentum on critical implementations while I focused on early motherhood. The preparation reflected my commitment to both professional excellence and responsible family planning. The nursery renovation project became a source of shared creativity and excitement, as Marcus and I selected colors, furniture arrangements, and decorative elements that would create welcoming environment for our daughter. We chose a soft lavender color scheme with white accents, installing custom shelving for books and toys that would grow with her developmental needs. Financial planning for parenthood involved detailed budgeting that accounted for childcare costs, medical expenses, and the temporary reduction in income during my maternity leave. Marcus and I reviewed insurance coverage, established education savings accounts, and created emergency funds that would provide security during the transition to parenthood. Our preparation reflected the systematic approach we applied to all major life changes. The baby shower, hosted by Linda and my sister-in-law, created an opportunity to celebrate with friends and family, while receiving practical gifts that would ease the transition to parenthood. The event reinforced my sense of community support and shared excitement about the changes approaching in our lives. Surrounded by women who had successfully navigated motherhood, I felt confident about the journey ahead. Medical appointments throughout my pregnancy proceeded without complications, creating confidence in both my health and the baby's development. Dr. Elizabeth Harrison, my obstetrician, provided thorough care and clear communication that reinforced my trust in the medical team at Riverside General Hospital. The prenatal classes and hospital tours created familiarity with procedures and staff that reduced anxiety about labor and delivery. As my due date approached, Marcus and I finalized logistics for hospital admission, childcare arrangements for our 2 cats, and work coverage that would allow us both to focus completely on welcoming our daughter. The hospital bag packed beside our bedroom door contained everything recommended by childbirth educators and experienced mothers who had shared their wisdom during preparation. The evening before I went into labor, Marcus and I shared dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant, discussing names we were still considering and dreams we held for our daughter's future. The conversation reflected the partnership and shared vision that had sustained our marriage through various challenges and changes over the years. That night, as we prepared for sleep, I felt grateful for the life we had built together and excited about the expansion that would make us a family of 3. The nursery stood ready, our support systems were in place, and our relationship felt strong enough to handle the transitions that parenthood would require. I had no way of knowing that within 24 hours, everything I believed about my marriage, my security, and my future would be completely transformed by revelations that would force me to discover strength I never knew I possessed and rebuild my life from foundations I would create entirely on my own. The woman who fell asleep that night beside her husband, confident in their partnership and excited about their shared future, would awaken to circumstances that would test every assumption she had made about love, loyalty, and the meaning of true security in an uncertain world. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The dismissal felt uncharacteristic, particularly given our established pattern of discussing professional challenges openly and collaboratively. Marcus had often sought my perspective on complex situations, valuing my analytical approach and problem-solving capabilities. His sudden reluctance to share details about work-related stress suggested something had changed in either his professional circumstances or his willingness to include me in problem-solving processes. Over the following week, I observed additional changes in Marcus's behavior that created growing unease about dynamics I had not previously questioned. He began receiving phone calls that required privacy, stepping outside or into another room to conduct conversations that seemed both frequent and concerning. When I inquired about these calls, he provided vague explanations about new client relationships or internal company communications that required confidentiality. His travel schedule, which had always been demanding but predictable, became more erratic and difficult to track. Marcus would mention business trips with short notice, sometimes departing for destinations he had not previously visited for client meetings that seemed unusually urgent given the timing of my approaching due date. When I expressed concern about his availability during the final weeks of pregnancy, he assured me that work travel would be minimized once the baby arrived. The financial behaviors that emerged during this period created additional concern about changes I could not fully understand or address. Marcus began handling bill payments and financial management with increased secretiveness, declining my offers to assist with budgeting tasks I had traditionally managed. When I attempted to review our bank statements and insurance documentation to ensure everything was properly prepared for medical expenses and maternity leave, he indicated that he had already organized these matters and my involvement was unnecessary. This shift toward financial privacy contradicted our established approach to money management, which had always involved shared oversight and collaborative decision-making about major expenses and savings goals. Marcus's sudden preference for individual control over household finances created uncertainty about our actual financial position and preparedness for the costs associated with expanding our family. The changes in his physical presence and attention patterns became increasingly apparent as my pregnancy progressed into its final month. Marcus seemed distracted during conversations, frequently checking his phone or appearing lost in thought when I attempted to discuss practical preparations for the baby's arrival. His participation in nursery completion tasks became perfunctory rather than enthusiastic, completing requested activities without the engagement and excitement he had previously demonstrated. Our intimate relationship, which had adapted naturally to the physical changes of pregnancy, underwent a transformation that felt more emotional than circumstantial. Marcus maintained appropriate affection and consideration for my comfort, but the deeper connection and shared anticipation that had characterized our approach to pregnancy seemed to diminish as my due date approached. The changes created self-doubt about my own perceptions and reactions, leading me to question whether pregnancy-related sensitivity was causing me to misinterpret normal stress responses to approaching fatherhood. Many of the books and articles I had read about preparing for parenthood emphasized that both partners might experience anxiety or behavioral changes as major life transitions approached. Perhaps Marcus was processing his own concerns about impending responsibilities in ways that required individual processing rather than collaborative discussion. Linda Morrison, my closest friend and colleague, noticed my increasing uncertainty during our regular lunch meetings and encouraged me to trust my instincts about changes in my marriage dynamic. "You know Marcus better than anyone," she observed during a conversation about my concerns. "If something feels different, it probably is different. The question is whether it's temporary stress or something more significant." Her validation of my observations provided some relief, but it also intensified my need to understand what was creating the distance I was experiencing in my relationship. Linda had been married for 12 years and had navigated her own challenges with work-life balance and communication during stressful periods. Her perspective carried weight because she had observed Marcus and me together at social events and professional gatherings over several years. The conversation with Linda prompted me to attempt more direct communication with Marcus about the changes I was observing. That evening, I chose a moment when he seemed relaxed and receptive to initiate a discussion about our relationship and preparations for parenthood. I approached the topic carefully, expressing appreciation for his support, while acknowledging that I had noticed some increased stress or distraction that concerned me. Marcus's response was reassuring on the surface, but somehow failed to address the deeper questions I was experiencing. He acknowledged that work pressures had intensified recently, and admitted that the prospect of becoming a father created anxiety about financial responsibilities and lifestyle changes. His explanations were logical and consistent with normal pre-parenthood concerns, yet something about his delivery or the specifics he chose to share felt incomplete. The discussion concluded with expressions of mutual support and commitment to maintaining open communication as we navigated the transition to parenthood. Marcus's reassurances were appropriate and seemingly sincere, but they did not eliminate the underlying sense that important information or feelings were being withheld from our conversation. As I entered the final 2 weeks before my due date, these concerns remained present but secondary to the immediate priorities of work transition, final medical appointments, and practical preparations for labor and delivery. I convinced myself that whatever stress or distance I was experiencing would resolve naturally once the baby arrived, and we could focus on the shared experience of new parenthood. The baby shower, hosted by Linda and my sister-in-law, created a temporary reprieve from relationship concerns, surrounding me with supportive women who shared stories, advice, and genuine excitement about the approaching birth. The celebration reinforced my confidence in the community of support that would be available during early motherhood, even if some uncertainty remained about the partnership dynamics with Marcus. During the final week of pregnancy, Marcus's behavior seemed to stabilize somewhat, with increased attention to my comfort and more active participation in last-minute preparations. He helped organize the hospital bag, reviewed our birth plan documentation, and expressed appropriate excitement about meeting our daughter. The improvement suggested that whatever stress had been affecting our relationship might have been resolved or was being managed more effectively. The evening before I went into labor, Marcus and I shared what seemed like a return to our normal dynamic of shared anticipation and mutual support. We discussed final name considerations, reviewed logistics for hospital admission, and expressed excitement about the changes that would transform us from a couple to a family. The conversation provided reassurance that whatever distance I had experienced was likely temporary and related to normal pre-parenthood anxiety, rather than fundamental changes in our relationship. As I prepared for sleep that night, I felt cautiously optimistic about our ability to navigate the challenges of new parenthood together and build on the foundation we had created during 8 years of marriage. The concerns of recent weeks seemed manageable compared to the shared joy and anticipation that had characterized most of my pregnancy experience. I had no way of knowing that the subtle changes I had observed and attempted to rationalize were actually indicators of a deception so profound that it would completely transform my understanding of my marriage, my security, and the person I had trusted with my future and the future of our child. The truth began to unravel 3 days before I went into labor, though I would not understand the full significance of what I discovered until Dr. Patterson delivered his devastating revelation in the hospital room, where I held my newborn daughter alone. The discovery occurred during what should have been a routine evening at home, as I attempted to locate our insurance documentation to review coverage details for the approaching delivery. Marcus had assured me repeatedly that all medical insurance matters were properly arranged and required no additional attention from me. However, my professional background in healthcare administration had instilled habits of verification and documentation that made me uncomfortable with incomplete knowledge about such critical matters. The approaching reality of labor and delivery expenses, combined with questions about coverage for potential complications, motivated me to conduct my own review of our insurance status. When I approached Marcus about accessing our insurance files, he displayed uncharacteristic irritation about what he characterized as unnecessary concern over matters he had already addressed comprehensively. His response included subtle accusations that pregnancy-related anxiety was causing me to question arrangements that were functioning properly without my intervention. The dismissive tone contradicted our established pattern of collaborative approach to important family matters. "Sarah, I've told you multiple times that everything is handled," Marcus said, his voice carrying an edge I rarely heard in our personal conversations. "You need to trust that I can manage our financial responsibilities without constant oversight. The stress you're creating isn't good for you or the baby." The comment about stress creation struck me as particularly unfair, given that my request for information access was motivated by responsible preparation rather than anxious interference. Throughout our marriage, Marcus had valued my analytical abilities and often sought my input on complex decisions. His sudden characterization of my involvement as stress-inducing felt like a deflection technique designed to end the conversation rather than address my legitimate concerns. That evening, after Marcus departed for what he described as an urgent client dinner requiring his immediate attention, I decided to locate our insurance documentation independently. The home office where Marcus typically handled financial matters contained organized files that should have included all relevant insurance policies, coverage details, and related correspondence with healthcare providers and insurance representatives. The search through our filing system revealed an organizational structure that was more complex and compartmentalized than I had previously realized. Marcus had created separate folders for different categories of financial information, with some sections secured in locked drawers that required access codes I did not possess. The level of security and separation was inconsistent with our historical approach to shared financial management. In the unlocked sections of the filing system, I discovered documents that provided partial information about our insurance status but raised more questions than they answered. The papers included correspondence with multiple insurance providers, policy modification requests, and coverage change notifications that suggested more extensive insurance management activity than Marcus had described to me. One document that captured my attention was a policy modification form dated 6 weeks earlier, requesting changes to beneficiary designations and coverage limitations that I could not fully interpret without additional context. The form included Marcus's signature but no indication that he had discussed these changes with me, despite their potential impact on coverage for pregnancy-related medical expenses. Another concerning discovery was a series of letters from our primary insurance provider regarding coverage verification requests and pre-authorization procedures that appeared to involve medical services beyond standard prenatal care and delivery expenses. The correspondence suggested that someone had been inquiring about coverage for specific medical procedures and extended care options that were not part of our original birth plan or expected medical needs. The most troubling document was a partially completed insurance claim form that included medical procedure codes I did not recognize and provider information for facilities I had never visited. The form was dated 2 weeks earlier and appeared to be related to medical services that had allegedly been provided to me, though I had no memory of receiving any medical care beyond my regular prenatal appointments with Dr. Harrison. These discoveries created significant concern about insurance management activities that Marcus had been conducting without my knowledge or involvement. The documents suggested a level of complexity and potential deception that contradicted everything he had told me about straightforward insurance arrangements that required no additional attention or oversight. I photographed the most concerning documents with my phone, intending to research the medical codes and provider information to better understand what services were being claimed under our insurance coverage. The investigation would require careful attention to avoid alerting Marcus to my discovery, until I could determine whether innocent explanations existed for the documentation I had found. The following morning, I conducted online research to interpret the medical codes and provider information I had discovered among our insurance documents. The results of this investigation created profound alarm about activities that appeared to involve fraudulent insurance claims and potential identity theft related to my medical information and coverage benefits. The medical procedure codes corresponded to services I had never received, including diagnostic tests, specialist consultations, and treatment procedures that were completely unrelated to pregnancy care or any medical needs I had experienced. The provider information led to medical facilities located in cities where Marcus had recently traveled for business, creating a pattern that suggested systematic misuse of my medical identity and insurance benefits. The insurance claim forms included my personal information, social security number, and patient identification details that would have allowed fraudulent medical billing under my identity. The sophisticated nature of the documentation suggested experience with insurance processes and medical terminology that exceeded casual familiarity with healthcare administration procedures. The discovery transformed my understanding of Marcus's recent behavioral changes, secretive phone calls, and increased travel schedule. Rather than representing work-related stress or pre-parenthood anxiety, these changes appeared to be connected to systematic insurance fraud activities that put both my identity and our family's financial security at risk. The realization that my husband had been using my medical identity to commit insurance fraud while I was pregnant with his child created emotional devastation that went beyond simple betrayal. The deception represented not only violation of trust, but potential legal jeopardy that could affect my professional reputation and our family's future stability. I contacted Linda Morrison, explaining that I had discovered concerning information about our insurance situation and needed advice about appropriate steps to protect both my identity and our family's interests. Linda, with her experience in healthcare administration, immediately recognized the seriousness of insurance fraud activities and recommended immediate consultation with legal counsel to understand potential liabilities and protection options. The conversation with Linda provided validation that my concerns were justified and required immediate attention, rather than further investigation or confrontation with Marcus. She emphasized that insurance fraud activities could create criminal liability for all parties associated with the fraudulent claims, regardless of whether I had knowledge of or participation in the illegal activities. Linda also recommended immediate contact with our insurance provider to report suspected fraudulent activities and request comprehensive review of all recent claims and coverage modifications associated with my identity. The insurance company's fraud investigation department would need to conduct thorough analysis of questionable claims while implementing protections to prevent additional unauthorized use of my medical information. That afternoon, while Marcus was at work, I contacted our insurance provider's fraud hotline to report suspected unauthorized use of my medical identity and request immediate investigation of recent claims activity. The insurance investigator who handled my call indicated that the documentation I described represented clear evidence of systematic fraud that required comprehensive investigation and potential criminal referral. The insurance company immediately implemented protective measures to prevent additional fraudulent claims while beginning investigation of all recent activity associated with my policy. The investigator explained that insurance fraud cases often involved sophisticated operations that could continue for extended periods before detection, creating substantial financial liability for both insurance companies and innocent victims whose identities had been misused. The investigation revealed that fraudulent claims totaling more than $40,000 had been submitted under my identity over the previous 4 months, coinciding exactly with the period when Marcus had begun displaying behavioral changes and increased secrecy about financial matters. The systematic nature of the fraud suggested extensive planning and coordination with medical providers who were complicit in submitting false claims. The insurance investigator explained that victims of medical identity theft often faced significant challenges in clearing their names and protecting their credit while dealing with legal consequences of fraudulent activities they did not commit. The process of resolving these issues could take months or years, during which time my professional reputation and financial stability would remain at risk. That evening, I confronted Marcus with the evidence I had discovered and the information provided by the insurance investigator. His initial response was denial and accusations that I had misinterpreted routine insurance management activities. However, when presented with specific documentation and detailed information about the fraudulent claims, his denials shifted to minimization and attempts to characterize his activities as temporary financial management strategies that would be resolved without negative consequences. Marcus's explanation revealed that he had been using my medical identity to obtain cash payments from complicit medical providers who submitted false insurance claims in exchange for shared proceeds from the fraudulent reimbursements. He characterized this arrangement as a short-term solution to financial pressures created by business setbacks that he had been unable to discuss with me due to concerns about creating pregnancy-related stress. The revelation that my husband had been committing systematic insurance fraud while I was pregnant, using my identity and medical information without my knowledge or consent, represented betrayal that went beyond anything I could have imagined. The criminal nature of his activities had created legal jeopardy for our entire family, while violating the trust that formed the foundation of our marriage. Marcus's attempts to justify his actions through references to financial pressure and protection of my well-being demonstrated a complete disconnect from the reality of what he had done and its potential consequences for our future. His expectation that I would accept his explanations and collaborate in resolving the situation revealed fundamental misunderstanding of both the severity of his crimes and the impact of his deception on our relationship. The conversation concluded with Marcus's demand that I cease communication with insurance investigators and legal counsel, arguing that external involvement would escalate a situation that could be resolved through private cooperation and financial restitution. His expectation that I would prioritize protecting him from consequences of his criminal activities over protecting myself and our unborn child demonstrated the extent to which his judgment had been compromised by illegal activities and deceptive behavior patterns. As I prepared for labor in the following days, carrying the knowledge of Marcus's fraud activities and their potential impact on our family's future, I realized that everything I had believed about my marriage and our shared values had been fundamentally false. The man I had trusted with my future had been systematically betraying that trust, while creating legal and financial jeopardy that could affect both my professional career and my ability to provide security for our child. The morning I went into labor, Marcus delivered an ultimatum that forced me to choose between protecting his criminal activities and safeguarding my own future, along with that of our unborn child. The conversation occurred at 4:30 in the morning as my contractions intensified to 5-minute intervals, creating a surreal backdrop of physical preparation for birth, while navigating emotional devastation that threatened to overwhelm my capacity for rational decision-making. Marcus had spent the previous evening alternating between angry demands that I cease cooperation with insurance investigators and desperate pleas for understanding about financial pressures that had motivated his fraudulent activities. His emotional appeals included detailed explanations of business setbacks, client payment delays, and commission reductions that had created cash flow problems he believed justified temporary criminal solutions that would be resolved without long-term consequences. The explanations revealed a pattern of poor business decisions and financial management failures that Marcus had concealed from me throughout the period when I believed our economic situation was stable and improving. His pharmaceutical sales position, which I had understood to be performing successfully with consistent income growth, had actually involved declining performance, client relationship problems, and commission reductions that had been accumulating for more than 6 months. Rather than discussing these professional challenges with me or exploring legitimate solutions to temporary financial difficulties, Marcus had chosen to address the problems through systematic insurance fraud that leveraged my medical identity and healthcare administration knowledge. His decision to pursue criminal solutions while maintaining deceptive normalcy in our marriage, represented a fundamental betrayal of the partnership principles that had sustained our relationship for 8 years. The morning ultimatum was delivered as I prepared to contact Dr. Harrison about the increasing intensity and frequency of my contractions. Marcus positioned himself between me and the telephone, his expression combining desperation with barely controlled anger, as he presented what he characterized as our final opportunity to resolve the insurance situation through private cooperation, rather than external legal intervention. "Sarah, you need to understand what you're doing to our family," Marcus began, his voice carrying an undertone of threat that I had never heard in our personal conversations. "If you continue working with these investigators and lawyers, you're going to destroy everything we've built together. The insurance fraud charges could affect both of us, and I could face prison time that would leave you raising our daughter alone." The characterization of my cooperation with legitimate authorities as destructive to our family represented a complete inversion of responsibility that demonstrated how profoundly Marcus's criminal activities had distorted his understanding of accountability and consequences. His expectation that I should prioritize protecting him from the results of his illegal behavior over protecting myself and our child from ongoing legal jeopardy revealed fundamental selfishness that had apparently been present throughout our marriage, but previously concealed by circumstances that did not require such stark choices. Marcus continued his appeal by emphasizing the potential impact of criminal charges on our child's future, arguing that my cooperation with investigators would result in financial devastation, social stigma, and family destruction that could be avoided through private resolution of the insurance fraud situation. His emotional manipulation included references to my professional reputation, our mortgage obligations, and the financial security our daughter would need for optimal developmental opportunities. "Think about what this means for the baby," Marcus pleaded, gesturing toward my pregnant abdomen as another contraction began building. "If I'm prosecuted for insurance fraud, I'll lose my job, we'll lose the house, and you'll be dealing with legal expenses while trying to support a newborn on your maternity leave benefits. Is that really what you want for our daughter's first months of life?" Quote, "The appeal to maternal instincts and concern for our child's welfare represented perhaps the most manipulative aspect of Marcus's ultimatum, attempting to use my love for our unborn daughter to justify enabling continued criminal activity and accepting ongoing legal vulnerability. His argument required me to believe that protecting a criminal from consequences of his illegal behavior would somehow create better outcomes for our family than ensuring that justice was served and future fraud activities were prevented. The contraction that peaked during Marcus's emotional manipulation created physical pain that seemed to mirror the emotional agony of recognizing that the man I had married and trusted with my future was attempting to coerce me into becoming complicit in his criminal activities. The juxtaposition of preparing to bring life into the world while being pressured to participate in deception and fraud created cognitive dissonance that challenged my capacity for clear thinking. As the contraction subsided, I looked directly at Marcus and recognized that the person standing before me was fundamentally different from the man I had believed I married. The husband I had loved and trusted would never have committed systematic insurance fraud using my identity, would never have concealed criminal activities while I was pregnant with his child, and would never have attempted to manipulate my concern for our daughter's welfare to avoid accountability for his illegal behavior. "Marcus, what you're asking me to do is participate in covering up criminal activity that has already put our family at legal and financial risk," I responded, my voice steady despite the emotional turmoil I was experiencing. "The insurance fraud has already happened. The damage to our family's security has already been done. My cooperation with investigators is an attempt to protect our daughter from the consequences of decisions you made without consulting me." Marcus's reaction to my refusal to enable his criminal activities revealed the depth of his desperation and the extent to which his illegal behavior had compromised his judgment. He began pacing our bedroom, running his hands through his hair, while delivering increasingly frantic arguments about why my cooperation with authorities represented betrayal of our marriage vows and abandonment of family loyalty during our time of greatest need. The escalating emotional intensity of his appeals coincided with my contractions reaching 3-minute intervals, creating urgent pressure to depart for the hospital while resolving a crisis that would determine the fundamental nature of our relationship and our family's future. The timing created additional stress that Marcus appeared to be leveraging deliberately, hoping that the urgency of labor would pressure me into agreeing to his demands without full consideration of their implications. "You have a choice to make right now," Marcus declared, his voice rising to match the intensity of his emotional state. "You can choose to protect our family by working with me to resolve this situation privately, or you can choose to destroy our marriage and our daughter's future by continuing to cooperate with people whose only goal is to prosecute me regardless of the impact on innocent family members." The false dichotomy presented in Marcus's ultimatum attempted to frame the situation as a choice between family loyalty and vindictive prosecution, rather than the actual choice between enabling criminal behavior and ensuring accountability for illegal activities that had already jeopardized our family's security. His characterization of insurance investigators and legal authorities as adversaries seeking to harm our family demonstrated a profound disconnection from the reality that his criminal activities had created the legal jeopardy he was attempting to escape. Another contraction interrupted my response to Marcus's ultimatum, this one intense enough to require focused breathing techniques, while I processed the full implications of the choice he was demanding I make. The physical experience of preparing to bring our daughter into the world, while simultaneously recognizing that her father was a criminal who expected me to become complicit in his illegal activities, created emotional devastation that threatened to overwhelm my capacity for rational decision-making. As the contraction peaked and began to subside, I experienced a moment of clarity about the fundamental nature of the choice Marcus was presenting. He was asking me to choose between immediate family preservation through criminal complicity and long-term family protection through legal accountability. The decision would determine not only our immediate circumstances but also the moral foundation upon which I would raise our daughter and the example I would provide about integrity, accountability, and the importance of choosing ethical behavior even when it required personal sacrifice. The realization that Marcus expected me to prioritize his avoidance of criminal prosecution over our daughter's right to be raised in an environment characterized by honesty and ethical behavior clarified the profound selfishness that had motivated his fraudulent activities. His willingness to jeopardize our family's legal standing, financial security, and moral integrity for personal financial benefit demonstrated fundamental character flaws that had apparently been present throughout our marriage but concealed by circumstances that had not required such revealing choices. "I will not participate in covering up criminal activity, regardless of the consequences for our marriage," I stated clearly, making eye contact with Marcus to ensure he understood the finality of my decision. "Our daughter deserves to be raised in an environment characterized by honesty and accountability, not criminal complicity and deception. If you choose to face the consequences of your illegal behavior, I will support you through that process. If you choose to continue expecting me to enable criminal activity, this conversation represents the end of our marriage." Marcus's response to my refusal revealed the extent to which his criminal activities had transformed his character and priorities. Rather than accepting responsibility for the situation he had created, or expressing remorse for the betrayal of trust his fraud activities represented, he began cataloging ways in which my decision would harm our family and damage our daughter's future opportunities. The blame shifting and emotional manipulation continued as my contractions reached 2-minute intervals, requiring immediate departure for the hospital regardless of the resolution of our marital crisis. Marcus's decision to continue pressuring me about criminal complicity while I was experiencing active labor demonstrated callous disregard for both my immediate medical needs and the welfare of our child, who was preparing to enter the world. The drive to Riverside General Hospital occurred in tense silence, with Marcus alternating between periods of sullen withdrawal and renewed attempts to convince me that cooperation with insurance investigators represented betrayal of our family's interests. His continued focus on avoiding criminal prosecution, rather than expressing concern about my labor progress or our daughter's impending arrival, revealed priorities that had been fundamentally altered by his illegal activities and their potential consequences. As we completed hospital admission procedures and settled into the labor and delivery room, I realized that regardless of the outcome of Marcus's legal situation, our marriage had been irreparably damaged by his criminal behavior and his expectation that I should become complicit in illegal activities to protect him from accountability. The man who had once represented partnership, support, and shared values had been revealed as someone whose character was fundamentally incompatible with the ethical foundation I required for raising our daughter in an environment that would promote her moral development and personal integrity. The labor and delivery room at Riverside General Hospital became the stage for the most devastating betrayal of my life, though the full scope of Marcus's deception would not become apparent until hours after he walked away from both his daughter and the woman who had trusted him with everything that mattered. The sterile environment, with its monitoring equipment and clinical efficiency, provided stark contrast to the emotional chaos that would unfold, as I experienced both the miracle of bringing life into the world and the destruction of everything I had believed about the man who was supposed to share that miracle with me. My labor progressed steadily through the morning hours, with contractions intensifying according to the natural rhythm that Dr. Harrison assured me indicated healthy progression toward delivery. Marcus remained in the room during the early phases, though his presence felt distant and distracted rather than supportive and engaged. He responded appropriately to medical staff questions and provided necessary assistance when requested, but the emotional connection and shared excitement that should have characterized this transformative experience was notably absent. The nursing staff, led by Janet Rodriguez, a veteran labor and delivery nurse with more than 20 years of experience, maintained professional demeanor while clearly observing the tension between Marcus and me. Janet had attended hundreds of births and possessed intuitive understanding of family dynamics that allowed her to provide excellent medical care while remaining diplomatically neutral regarding relationship conflicts that occasionally surfaced during the stress of childbirth. Dr. Harrison arrived during the mid-morning hours to assess my progress and provide updated guidance about the timeline for delivery. Her examination revealed that labor was progressing normally and delivery could be expected within the next 4 to 6 hours, assuming no complications developed that would require medical intervention or alternative delivery methods. The information provided both relief about the normalcy of my labor progression and anxiety about spending additional hours in the emotionally charged atmosphere that had developed between Marcus and me. The insurance fraud situation remained an unspoken presence in the delivery room, creating underlying tension that affected every interaction despite our attempts to focus on the immediate priorities of labor and childbirth. Marcus continued to make periodic references to the importance of family unity and private resolution of our legal difficulties, while I maintained focus on the medical process and emotional preparation for welcoming our daughter into circumstances that had become far more complex than either of us had anticipated. During the afternoon hours, as my contractions became more intense and frequent, Marcus began displaying increasing agitation that seemed disproportionate to the normal stress associated with witnessing labor progression. He made several trips to the hospital corridor, ostensibly to stretch his legs or contact work colleagues, but his absences lasted longer than typical brief breaks, and his demeanor upon returning suggested conversations or concerns that extended beyond routine business communications. Janet Rodriguez approached me during one of Marcus's extended absences to inquire about my support preferences and ensure that I felt comfortable with the current arrangements. Her professional experience had clearly taught her to recognize situations where family dynamics might affect patient care or emotional well-being during vulnerable medical procedures. "Mrs. Chen, I want to make sure you feel supported during this process," Janet said gently, adjusting the fetal monitoring equipment while maintaining eye contact that conveyed both professional competence and personal compassion. "If you need any adjustments to your support arrangements or have concerns about anything affecting your comfort during labor, please let me know immediately." The inquiry provided an opportunity to discuss my growing concerns about Marcus's behavior and emotional availability during what should have been one of the most significant experiences we would share as a married couple. However, the complexity of our situation and my reluctance to burden medical staff with personal relationship conflicts prevented me from articulating the full extent of my concerns about the insurance fraud situation and its impact on our family dynamics. "Thank you, Janet. I appreciate your attention to my comfort and well-being," I responded, choosing to maintain privacy about the specific nature of my concerns while acknowledging the support being offered by the medical team. "The staff here has been exceptional, and I feel confident about the medical care I'm receiving." Marcus returned from his extended corridor absence during this conversation, his expression revealing irritation that I had been discussing anything with medical staff during his absence. The reaction suggested possessiveness or concern about information sharing that seemed inappropriate given the medical context and the professional nature of the nursing staff's inquiries about my comfort and support needs. As afternoon progressed into evening and my labor intensified toward active delivery phase, Marcus's behavior became increasingly erratic and concerning. He made more frequent trips outside the delivery room, his phone conversations became more animated and lengthy, and his interaction with medical staff shifted from cooperative engagement to distracted tolerance of necessary medical procedures. The emotional disconnection became most apparent during the transition phase of labor, when contractions reached maximum intensity, and I required focused support for pain management and encouragement during the most challenging period of the birthing process. Marcus's physical presence in the room was maintained, but his emotional availability was virtually absent, creating a sense of laboring alone despite having my husband standing beside the hospital bed. Dr. Harrison returned to assess my progress during the early evening hours, confirming that I had reached full dilation and delivery was imminent. The medical team began final preparations for the birth, arranging equipment and positioning that would facilitate safe delivery, while ensuring optimal conditions for immediate newborn care if any medical interventions became necessary. "Mrs. Chen, you're doing beautifully, and we should meet your daughter within the next hour," Dr. Harrison announced with the professional optimism that experienced obstetricians use to provide encouragement during the final phases of labor. "Mr. Chen, this is an exciting moment for your family, and I want to make sure you're prepared for the delivery process and immediate newborn care procedures." Marcus acknowledged Dr. Harrison's comments with appropriate verbal responses, but his body language and attention level suggested preoccupation with concerns that were unrelated to the impending birth of his daughter. The disconnection became increasingly obvious to medical staff members, who began directing most of their communication toward me rather than attempting to engage both parents in delivery preparation discussions. The moment that would define the rest of my life occurred at 7:43 in the evening, just as my contractions reached the intensity that indicated imminent delivery. Marcus, who had been standing beside my hospital bed holding my hand during contractions, suddenly released my hand and stepped toward the door with an expression that combined determination and resignation. "Sarah, I need to get some coffee from the vending area," Marcus announced, his voice carrying an undertone that suggested this departure was different from his previous brief absences. "This is taking longer than I expected, and I need a few minutes to clear my head." The timing of his departure, just as I entered the final phase of labor that would result in our daughter's birth, struck me as extraordinarily poor judgment, even considering the stress he was experiencing about the insurance fraud situation. Labor and delivery nurses had emphasized repeatedly that partners should remain present during active delivery to provide support and share in the immediate bonding experience with their newborn child. "Marcus, the baby is coming now," I managed to say between contractions, my voice carrying both physical strain and emotional desperation as I realized he was choosing to absent himself during the most critical moments of our daughter's arrival. Dr. Harrison said delivery will happen within the next hour. "Please don't leave right now." Marcus paused at the doorway, his hand on the handle, and turned back toward me with an expression that seemed to contain apology, regret, and finality in equal measure. The look in his eyes suggested that this departure represented more than a brief coffee break, though I could not have comprehended the full extent of what his absence would mean until much later that evening. "I'll be back soon," Marcus replied, though his tone lacked the conviction that would have provided reassurance about his intended return. "You're in excellent hands with Dr. Harrison and the nursing staff. Everything will be fine." The delivery room door closed behind him with a soft click that seemed to echo with disproportionate finality, leaving me surrounded by medical professionals who were preparing to deliver my daughter, while the person who should have been my primary support partner had chosen to prioritize his own comfort over participation in our child's birth. Janet Rodriguez immediately moved to the position beside my bed that Marcus had vacated, providing the physical and emotional support that labor and delivery required during the final phases of the birthing process. Her professional competence and compassionate presence helped compensate for Marcus's absence, though nothing could eliminate the emotional devastation of recognizing that my husband had abandoned me during one of the most vulnerable and significant experiences of my life. "Mrs. Chen, let's focus on welcoming your daughter," Janet said gently, her voice providing both medical guidance and emotional anchor during a moment when my personal world was collapsing around the miracle of new life. "You're doing incredibly well, and she'll be here very soon." The delivery proceeded with the efficiency and care that characterized excellent medical attention, though the joy and shared excitement that should have accompanied our daughter's arrival was overshadowed by the growing realization that Marcus's departure represented something far more serious than temporary absence for personal comfort. Isabella Marie Chen entered the world at 8:27 that evening, a healthy 7-pound, 2-ounce baby girl, whose first cries filled the delivery room with the sound of new life and infinite possibility. Dr. Harrison placed her on my chest immediately following delivery, creating the profound bonding moment that represents one of the most powerful experiences in human existence. As I held my daughter for the first time, feeling her warmth against my chest and observing her perfect tiny features, I experienced simultaneous joy and devastating sadness that her father had chosen to absent himself from this transformative moment. Isabella's birth represented triumph of life, love, and maternal strength, while Marcus's abandonment represented the ultimate betrayal of partnership, commitment, and shared responsibility. The nursing staff completed post-delivery procedures with professional efficiency while providing emotional support that helped me process the complex emotions accompanying Isabella's birth. Janet Rodriguez, in particular, demonstrated exceptional sensitivity to the unusual circumstances, ensuring that I received comprehensive medical care while acknowledging the emotional significance of experiencing childbirth without partner support. 2 hours passed following Isabella's birth without any communication from Marcus. The absence that had begun as announced coffee break had extended well beyond any reasonable time frame for return, creating growing concern among medical staff and devastating realization for me that his departure might represent permanent abandonment rather than temporary absence. Dr. Harrison approached my bedside at 10:15 that evening, carrying papers that would provide the first indication of the complete scope of Marcus's betrayal and the devastating revelation that would transform my understanding of everything that had transpired during the previous months of deception and criminal activity. "Mrs. Chen, there's something you should know about the insurance papers your husband signed yesterday." Dr. Patterson's revelation transformed my understanding of the previous months of deception in ways that exceeded even my worst assumptions about Marcus's criminal activities and betrayal of our marriage. The insurance documents he shared with me at 10:15 that evening, as I held Isabella against my chest in the quiet delivery room, revealed a level of premeditation and systematic fraud that demonstrated Marcus had been planning my abandonment long before the labor and delivery that provided his final opportunity to escape accountability for his illegal behavior. The documents contained insurance policy modifications that Marcus had executed 3 days before Isabella's birth, changes that removed him as beneficiary on my life insurance policy while simultaneously increasing the coverage amount and adding accelerated death benefit provisions that would have provided immediate cash payments in the event of my death during childbirth or postpartum complications. The timing and nature of these modifications suggested that Marcus had been preparing for scenarios that went far beyond simple financial fraud to include potential outcomes that would have eliminated me as a witness to his criminal activities. Dr. Patterson explained that the insurance modifications had been discovered during routine verification procedures that were conducted for all patients whose delivery expenses exceeded certain threshold amounts. The unusual nature of the policy changes, combined with Marcus's sudden departure from the hospital, had prompted additional investigation that revealed the broader scope of fraudulent activities that had been conducted using my medical identity and insurance coverage. The investigation had uncovered evidence that Marcus had been systematically billing fraudulent medical services under my insurance coverage for more than 6 months, working with complicit medical providers in multiple states to submit false claims for procedures I had never received. The sophisticated nature of the fraud operation suggested extensive planning and coordination that had required significant time and energy that Marcus had been diverting from our marriage and family responsibilities. More devastating than the financial fraud was the discovery that Marcus had been using my medical information to research insurance policies and death benefit provisions that would have provided him with substantial financial gain in the event of my death during childbirth. The research included detailed analysis of maternal mortality statistics, complications that could arise during labor and delivery, and insurance claim procedures that would expedite benefit payments to surviving spouses. The documentation revealed that Marcus had been corresponding with insurance representatives about accelerated benefit options and had submitted preliminary claim forms that could be quickly processed in the event of my death during or immediately following Isabella's birth. The premeditation involved in these preparations demonstrated that my husband had been contemplating scenarios that involved my death as a solution to the legal and financial difficulties created by his fraudulent activities. Dr. Patterson's presentation of this information was delivered with the professional compassion that experienced physicians develop for sharing devastating news with patients and families. His explanation acknowledged the extraordinary emotional burden of learning about such extensive betrayal during the vulnerable period immediately following childbirth, while ensuring that I understood the legal and financial implications of the discoveries that had been made. The insurance fraud investigation had expanded to include federal authorities due to the interstate nature of the fraudulent activities and the involvement of multiple medical providers in submitting false claims. The systematic nature of the fraud operation had created evidence of organized criminal activity that exceeded simple opportunistic insurance abuse to constitute sophisticated white-collar crime that carried potential federal prosecution and substantial prison sentences. The revelation that federal investigators were involved in the case created immediate concern about my legal exposure as the unwilling victim whose identity had been used to facilitate the fraudulent activities. Dr. Patterson assured me that preliminary discussions with investigating authorities had confirmed that I was considered a victim rather than a participant in the criminal activities, though formal documentation of my non-involvement would require cooperation with federal investigators and testimony about the extent of my knowledge regarding Marcus's illegal behavior. The hospital's legal department had been notified about the unusual circumstances surrounding my insurance coverage and Marcus's departure, creating additional complexity regarding payment for delivery services and ongoing medical care for both Isabella and me. The fraudulent nature of recent insurance claims created uncertainty about coverage validity that would need to be resolved through insurance company investigations and potential legal proceedings. Linda Morrison arrived at the hospital within an hour of receiving my emergency call, bringing both personal support and professional expertise that would prove essential for navigating the immediate legal and financial challenges created by Marcus's abandonment and the revelation of his extensive criminal activities. Her healthcare administration background provided valuable insight into insurance fraud investigations and patient rights during complex billing disputes. Linda's first priority was ensuring that Isabella and I received appropriate medical care regardless of insurance coverage uncertainties, working with hospital administrators to establish payment arrangements that would prevent interruption of necessary medical services while fraud investigations proceeded. Her professional relationships within the healthcare system provided credibility and access to resources that individual patients might not have been able to secure independently. The conversation with Linda about the full scope of Marcus's betrayal provided the first opportunity to process the emotional impact of discovering that my husband had not only abandoned me during childbirth, but had been systematically preparing for my potential death as a solution to legal difficulties created by his criminal behavior. The realization that the man I had trusted with my life and future had been researching scenarios involving my death created trauma that extended far beyond typical marital betrayal. Linda's response to the insurance fraud revelations included immediate recommendations for legal representation and financial protection that would safeguard my interests and Isabella's future, while ensuring full cooperation with federal investigators. Her advice emphasized the importance of proactive engagement with legal authorities to document my victim status while protecting my professional reputation and career prospects from potential damage associated with criminal investigation publicity. The decision to contact federal investigators directly, rather than waiting for them to initiate contact with me, represented the first proactive step toward taking control of circumstances that had been created entirely through Marcus's criminal behavior and deception. The choice to engage with legal authorities immediately, despite the emotional exhaustion of recent childbirth and abandonment, demonstrated commitment to protecting Isabella's future and ensuring that justice was served for the crimes that had been committed against our family. Federal Agent Patricia Williams, assigned to the insurance fraud investigation, arrived at the hospital the following morning to conduct preliminary interviews and gather evidence about my knowledge of Marcus's criminal activities. Her professional demeanor and experience with white-collar crime cases provided reassurance that the investigation would be conducted thoroughly while protecting the rights and interests of victims like myself who had been used unwittingly to facilitate fraudulent activities. Agent Williams confirmed that the evidence collected during the investigation clearly established my status as victim, rather than participant in the insurance fraud activities, though formal documentation of this determination would require comprehensive interviews and testimony about my relationship with Marcus and my knowledge of his professional and financial activities during the period when fraudulent claims were being submitted. The interview process revealed the extent to which Marcus had compartmentalized his criminal activities, maintaining normal family routines and relationship dynamics while conducting sophisticated fraud operations that required extensive coordination with criminal associates and complicit medical providers. His ability to sustain deception for such extended periods while maintaining emotional intimacy with me demonstrated psychological characteristics that suggested sociopathic tendencies rather than simple financial desperation. The revelation that Marcus had been researching my life insurance benefits and death claim procedures created additional urgency for ensuring my physical safety and that of Isabella, since his departure from the hospital did not eliminate potential danger from someone who had been contemplating scenarios involving my death. Agent Williams recommended immediate implementation of security measures and communication restrictions that would prevent Marcus from accessing information about my location or medical status. The hospital's social services department, led by Counselor Maria Santos, provided resources for emotional support and practical assistance that would help me navigate the immediate challenges of single parenthood while processing the trauma associated with discovering the extent of Marcus's betrayal and criminal behavior. Maria's experience with cases involving domestic deception and abandonment provided valuable perspective on recovery processes and legal protections available to victims of such circumstances. The decision to establish temporary residence in a location that Marcus could not easily access represented the first concrete step toward building independent life that would protect both Isabella and me from potential retaliation or continued manipulation. Linda offered to provide temporary housing in her guest cottage, creating a secure environment where I could focus on recovery and planning without concern about unexpected confrontations or demands for criminal complicity. The process of gathering personal belongings from our Willowbrook home required coordination with local law enforcement to ensure safety while collecting essential items for Isabella and me. The experience of returning to spaces that had represented marital partnership and shared dreams, now revealed as settings for systematic deception and criminal planning, created additional emotional trauma that would require professional counseling support to process effectively. The house that had once represented achievement and security now felt contaminated by knowledge of Marcus's criminal activities and his preparation for scenarios involving my death. The nursery I had decorated with such care and anticipation became a painful reminder of how thoroughly my husband had betrayed the trust and love that had motivated my excitement about expanding our family through Isabella's arrival. Financial assessment of our joint assets revealed additional complexity created by Marcus's fraudulent activities and the potential civil liability associated with insurance fraud prosecution. Asset seizure procedures related to criminal investigations could affect property and accounts that I had assumed would provide security for Isabella's care and my transition to single parenthood. The establishment of separate banking accounts and credit arrangements became essential for ensuring financial independence and protecting Isabella's resources from potential seizure related to Marcus's criminal prosecution. Linda's assistance with these practical matters allowed me to focus on emotional recovery while ensuring that necessary financial protections were implemented immediately. The decision to return to work following maternity leave represented both practical necessity and psychological healing, providing income security while re-establishing professional identity that had been compromised by association with Marcus's criminal activities. My employer's support during this difficult period demonstrated the value of maintaining excellent professional relationships that could provide stability during personal crises. The choice to pursue single parenthood with determination rather than despair represented the fundamental decision that would define the rest of my life and Isabella's future. Rather than allowing Marcus's betrayal and abandonment to create permanent victim identity, I chose to view his departure as liberation from criminal association and opportunity to build authentic life based on values of integrity, accountability, and genuine love for my daughter. The strength that emerged during those first days of independent motherhood came from recognition that I possessed capabilities and resources that did not depend on Marcus's presence or support. The professional skills, personal relationships, and moral foundation that I had developed independently provided everything necessary to create successful life for Isabella and myself, without relying on partnership with someone whose character had been revealed as fundamentally incompatible with family responsibility and ethical behavior. The transformation from abandoned wife to empowered single mother began in that hospital room where Isabella had entered the world, as I made the conscious decision to embrace the challenges and opportunities that would come with building life based on authentic values rather than convenient deceptions. The first major obstacle to rebuilding my life emerged 6 weeks after Isabella's birth, when I received notification from Meridian Healthcare Systems that my security clearance was under review due to potential criminal associations discovered during routine background verification procedures. The timing could not have been worse, as I was scheduled to return from maternity leave the following week to resume my role as Senior Project Coordinator for medical software implementations across multiple hospital networks. The security review notification arrived on a Tuesday morning as I was feeding Isabella in Linda's guest cottage, where we had been staying since leaving the hospital. The official letterhead and formal language created immediate anxiety about the potential impact of Marcus's criminal activities on my professional reputation and career prospects. The document requested my immediate attendance at a security review meeting to discuss concerns about my continued eligibility for access to sensitive medical information and healthcare system networks. The investigation had uncovered my association with Marcus's insurance fraud activities through routine monitoring of employee financial records and background verification procedures that were designed to identify potential security risks within healthcare organizations. While the review acknowledged that preliminary evidence suggested I was a victim rather than a participant in the fraudulent activities, formal clearance of security concerns would require comprehensive investigation and documentation of my non-involvement in criminal behavior. The potential loss of security clearance represented catastrophic threat to my career in healthcare administration, since virtually all positions involving medical software implementation and sensitive patient information required clearance that could take months or years to restore once revoked. The specialized nature of my professional expertise meant that alternative employment opportunities would be extremely limited without the clearance necessary to access healthcare systems and confidential patient data. Linda recognized the severity of the situation immediately when I shared the notification with her that morning. Her experience in healthcare administration provided clear understanding of how security clearance issues could permanently derail careers in our field, regardless of individual culpability for the circumstances that triggered investigation. Her immediate recommendation was to engage legal representation specializing in security clearance defense to ensure proper navigation of the review process. The legal consultation with attorney David Chen, who specialized in federal security clearance cases, provided both reassurance about the strength of my position and sobering reality about the complexity and duration of the review process. David's assessment indicated that while my victim status in the insurance fraud case created strong foundation for clearance retention, the review process could extend for several months, during which my employment status would remain uncertain. David explained that security clearance reviews involving criminal associations required comprehensive investigation of personal finances, relationship history, and lifestyle patterns to determine whether security risks existed that could compromise access to sensitive information. The process would involve extensive interviews, documentation review, and character references that would examine every aspect of my personal and professional life during the period when Marcus had been conducting fraudulent activities. The most challenging aspect of the security clearance review was the requirement to demonstrate that I had not benefited financially from Marcus's criminal activities, and that no ongoing relationship existed that could create future security vulnerabilities. This burden of proof required detailed financial documentation showing that fraudulent proceeds had not been used for family expenses or asset acquisition, and that complete separation from Marcus had been established to prevent potential coercion or manipulation. The financial documentation process revealed additional complexity created by Marcus's systematic use of joint accounts and shared assets to obscure the sources and destinations of fraudulent proceeds. Forensic accounting analysis would be necessary to trace financial transactions and demonstrate that legitimate income had funded family expenses, while fraudulent proceeds had been diverted for Marcus's personal use or criminal operation expansion. The meeting with Meridian Healthcare Systems Security Director Robert Martinez took place the following week in a sterile conference room that felt more like an interrogation facility than a workplace discussion area. Robert's professional demeanor remained courteous throughout the interview, but the scope and detail of his questions made clear that my entire personal history and relationship with Marcus would be scrutinized thoroughly before any determination about continued employment could be made. The questioning process required detailed recounting of my relationship with Marcus, including timeline information about when behavioral changes had first appeared, what knowledge I possessed about his professional activities, and how extensively I had been involved in family financial management during the period when fraudulent activities were occurring. The invasion of privacy was necessary but emotionally exhausting, particularly when combined with the demands of caring for Isabella and processing the trauma of abandonment and betrayal. Robert's assessment of my responses appeared cautiously optimistic, though he emphasized that final determination about security clearance retention would depend on federal investigation outcomes and formal documentation of my victim status in the criminal case. The timeline for resolution remained uncertain, creating significant anxiety about my ability to resume work and maintain the professional momentum that had been building before maternity leave. The temporary suspension from active project responsibilities while security review proceeded created immediate financial pressure that threatened my ability to maintain independent living arrangements and provide adequately for Isabella's needs. The maternity leave benefits that had seemed adequate for planned family expansion became insufficient for extended unemployment period that could stretch for several months depending on investigation timelines. Linda's offer to extend our stay in her guest cottage provided essential housing security during this uncertain period, though the arrangement created feelings of dependence that conflicted with my determination to establish complete independence following Marcus's abandonment. The generosity of her support was invaluable, but accepting extended assistance created emotional complexity about maintaining professional relationships while managing personal crisis. The financial assessment conducted with accountant Jennifer Walsh revealed that Marcus's systematic depletion of joint savings accounts and diversion of family funds for criminal activities had left me with significantly fewer resources than I had assumed would be available for supporting Isabella and establishing independent household. The discovery required immediate adjustment of plans for housing, childcare, and living expenses that had been based on incomplete information about our actual financial position. Jennifer's analysis indicated that recovery of diverted funds would likely require civil litigation against Marcus and potentially against his criminal associates who had participated in the fraudulent activities. The legal process could take years to complete and offered no guarantee of successful asset recovery, particularly if Marcus had hidden proceeds in accounts or investments that could not be easily traced or accessed through court proceedings. The child care arrangements that had seemed straightforward while married became complex and expensive when viewed from perspective of single parenthood with uncertain income prospects. The high-quality daycare programs that I had researched during pregnancy required substantial deposits and monthly fees that exceeded what unemployed income could support, creating pressure to find alternative arrangements that would allow eventual return to work while ensuring Isabella received appropriate care and attention. The emotional weight of managing professional crisis while caring for newborn child created stress levels that threatened my physical health and emotional stability. The sleep deprivation inherent in early motherhood, combined with anxiety about career survival and financial security, created circumstances that required proactive stress management and support system utilization to prevent breakdown that could compromise both my recovery and Isabella's care. The decision to engage private investigator Michael Torres to locate Marcus and determine his current circumstances represented proactive step toward resolving the multiple crises created by his abandonment and criminal activities. Michael's expertise in financial fraud cases provided hope for tracing hidden assets and gathering evidence that could expedite resolution of both criminal prosecution and civil litigation proceedings. Michael's preliminary investigation revealed that Marcus had been more sophisticated in his criminal planning than even federal investigators had initially realized. The evidence suggested that he had been establishing false identities and transferring assets to accounts outside the United States, creating complex international financial arrangements that would make asset recovery extremely difficult and time-consuming. The discovery that Marcus had been planning international financial arrangements for potential escape from prosecution created additional concern about my safety and Isabella's security, since his preparation for permanent disappearance suggested awareness that criminal prosecution was inevitable and that desperate measures might be necessary to avoid consequences. The information prompted additional security precautions and communication restrictions to prevent unexpected contact or confrontation. The support group for victims of financial fraud, facilitated by counselor Maria Santos, provided valuable perspective on recovery processes and practical strategies for rebuilding life after betrayal and financial devastation. The other participants shared experiences that helped normalize the emotional challenges I was facing while providing practical advice about navigating legal proceedings and establishing financial independence. The group sessions revealed that recovery from financial fraud perpetrated by trusted partners required not only practical reconstruction of financial security, but also psychological healing from betrayal trauma that affected fundamental assumptions about trust, relationships, and personal judgment. The process demanded patience with emotional recovery while maintaining focus on practical steps necessary for building a stable future. The breakthrough in my security clearance review occurred when federal investigators formally documented my victim status and provided comprehensive report to Meridian Healthcare Systems confirming that I had not participated in or benefited from Marcus's criminal activities. The documentation established clear separation between my professional integrity and my former husband's illegal behavior, creating foundation for clearance retention and eventual return to work. The relief of receiving clearance confirmation was accompanied by determination to rebuild my career with greater awareness of personal resilience and professional capabilities that had been revealed through surviving the crisis. The experience had demonstrated that I possessed strength, intelligence, and resourcefulness sufficient to navigate complex challenges while maintaining ethical standards and professional competence under extreme pressure. The return to work represented not only resumption of income and career momentum, but also restoration of professional identity that had been threatened by association with Marcus's criminal activities. The colleagues who welcomed me back with support and understanding provided evidence that authentic professional relationships could survive personal crisis and provide foundation for continued growth and achievement. The first project assignment upon returning from extended leave involved implementation of medical software systems for regional hospital network, requiring the same analytical skills, coordination capabilities, and technical expertise that had established my reputation before the crisis. The familiar challenges provided welcome focus on meaningful work that served healthcare improvement, rather than the legal and financial complications that had dominated recent months. The successful completion of the project ahead of schedule and under budget demonstrated that my professional capabilities had not been diminished by personal trauma, and that the crisis had actually strengthened my problem-solving skills and resilience under pressure. The achievement provided confidence that career rebuilding was possible, and that single parenthood would not prevent professional excellence or advancement opportunities. The transformation from isolated crisis management to genuine community support began 8 weeks after returning to work, when Isabella and I joined the Riverside Community Center's single-parent support group on a Tuesday evening that would fundamentally change our understanding of what family and belonging could look like. The decision to attend the meeting had been prompted by exhaustion that came not from single parenthood itself, but from the loneliness of navigating every challenge without the partnership and shared responsibility that I had expected to characterize raising Isabella. The community center occupied a converted Victorian mansion in downtown Riverside, its warm lighting and comfortable furniture creating an atmosphere that felt more like a welcoming home than an institutional meeting space. The building's history as a private residence had been preserved through careful renovation that maintained architectural character while adapting spaces for modern community programming and support services. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the licensed clinical social worker who facilitated the single-parent group, greeted new members with genuine warmth that immediately reduced the anxiety I felt about exposing personal struggles to strangers who might judge or misunderstand the circumstances that had led to my situation. Her professional experience working with families in crisis had taught her to create environments where vulnerability could be shared safely, and mutual support could develop naturally. The group included 12 other single parents, whose stories revealed the diverse circumstances that could lead to solo child-rearing responsibilities. Unlike the victim support groups I had attended for financial fraud recovery, this gathering focused on practical solutions and community building, rather than processing trauma and discussing legal proceedings. The shift in emphasis from past damage to future possibilities created energy that felt empowering rather than depleting. Margaret Williams, a 43-year-old nurse practitioner raising twin boys after her husband's death in a construction accident, immediately understood the challenge of balancing demanding professional responsibilities with intensive parenting needs. Her experience navigating healthcare career requirements while managing grief and single parenthood provided valuable perspective on maintaining professional excellence while creating stable family environment during difficult transitions. Margaret's approach to single parenting emphasized building extended support networks that could provide practical assistance and emotional connection for both parents and children. Her philosophy rejected the myth of complete independence in favor of recognizing that successful childrearing had always been community effort that required multiple adults contributing different types of support and guidance. The conversation with Margaret after that first meeting revealed how extensively she had researched resources available to single parents in the Riverside area, creating comprehensive knowledge of childcare options, educational programs, financial assistance opportunities, and professional networking possibilities that could enhance both parenting effectiveness and career development. Her willingness to share this information reflected the collaborative spirit that characterized the entire support group. James Morrison, a software engineer raising his 6-year-old daughter Emma after his divorce, had developed expertise in practical logistics that made single parenthood manageable while maintaining demanding career responsibilities. His systematic approach to time management, childcare coordination, and household organization provided templates that could be adapted to different family circumstances and professional requirements. James's story demonstrated that men in single parenting roles faced unique challenges related to social expectations and support system availability, but also revealed universal strategies for creating stability and nurturing environments that transcended gender-specific approaches. His success in balancing technical career demands with engaged fatherhood provided inspiration for achieving professional excellence while prioritizing family relationships. The child care cooperative that had emerged organically from the support group represented an innovative solution to one of the most significant challenges facing single parents who needed reliable, affordable care for their children while managing professional responsibilities. The arrangement involved member families taking turns providing childcare for group activities, emergency situations, and planned events that allowed parents to maintain social connections and personal interests beyond parenting duties. The cooperative arrangement had evolved into a sophisticated support network, where members contributed different types of assistance based on their individual capabilities and availability. Margaret provided medical advice and health monitoring for children in the group, James offered technology support and computer tutoring, and other members contributed skills in areas ranging from academic tutoring to household maintenance and repair projects. Isabella's integration into this extended community began immediately, with older children in the group naturally assuming protective and nurturing roles toward the youngest member. The multi-generational relationships that developed provided Isabella with diverse adult influences and peer connections that would enrich her social development, while demonstrating that family structures could extend far beyond traditional nuclear arrangements. The professional networking opportunities that emerged through support group connections proved unexpectedly valuable for career development and advancement possibilities. Several group members worked in healthcare-related fields, creating opportunities for knowledge sharing, professional referrals, and collaborative projects that enhanced everyone's career prospects while maintaining focus on family-friendly work arrangements. Dr. Amanda Foster, a pediatrician who had joined the group after her husband's abandonment during her medical residency, offered insights into healthcare career development that could accommodate single parenting responsibilities while advancing professional goals. Her experience balancing medical training with solo child rearing provided encouragement that demanding careers could be pursued successfully without compromising children's welfare or development. Amanda's pediatric practice had become a resource for other group members, providing accessible medical care that understood the practical constraints facing single parents. Her flexible scheduling and comprehensive approach to child health created a medical care model that served entire families rather than treating children as isolated patients disconnected from their family circumstances. The financial education workshops organized by group member Rachel Thompson, a certified financial planner who had rebuilt her career after bankruptcy following her husband's gambling addiction, provided essential knowledge for managing single-income household budgets while building long-term financial security. Rachel's expertise combined professional financial planning credentials with personal experience navigating economic crisis and recovery. Rachel's approach to financial education emphasized practical strategies that could be implemented immediately, rather than theoretical concepts that required substantial resources or complex investment knowledge. Her workshops covered budgeting techniques, debt management, savings strategies, and insurance planning that acknowledged the specific challenges and opportunities facing single parents with limited financial flexibility. The legal resources available through the Community Center's partnership with Riverside Legal Aid provided access to affordable legal assistance for issues ranging from custody and child support enforcement to employment discrimination and tenant rights protection. The legal clinic, operated by volunteer attorneys who understood the particular vulnerabilities facing single parents, created safety net that protected families from exploitation or legal manipulation. The housing assistance program, coordinated through the community center, helped group members locate affordable, safe housing options while building toward homeownership opportunities that could create long-term stability and asset building for single-parent families. The program's emphasis on sustainable housing solutions rather than temporary emergency assistance reflected understanding that stable housing was foundation for all other aspects of family success. The educational advocacy services provided by the community center ensured that children in single-parent families received appropriate academic support and enrichment opportunities that might otherwise be unavailable due to resource constraints or lack of parental time for school involvement. The advocacy program helped parents navigate educational systems while ensuring children's needs were met comprehensively. The mentorship program that connected experienced single parents with newer group members created formal structure for the informal support that naturally developed within the community. The mentorship relationships provided practical guidance and emotional support while creating accountability partnerships that helped maintain focus on long-term goals during periods of immediate crisis or challenge. My mentor relationship with Margaret developed into friendship that extended far beyond the original support group context, creating personal connection based on shared values and mutual respect rather than simply common circumstances. Margaret's wisdom about balancing professional ambition with family priorities provided guidance that was both practical and emotionally supportive during the ongoing process of rebuilding life after betrayal and abandonment. The volunteer opportunities available through the community center allowed group members to contribute their professional skills and personal talents in ways that served broader community needs, while demonstrating to children the importance of civic engagement and mutual support. The volunteer work provided meaningful activity that extended beyond immediate family responsibilities while building professional networks and community connections. Isabella's participation in the community center's early childhood development programs provided her with educational enrichment and social interaction opportunities that supplemented the individual attention she received at home. The programs were designed specifically for children from single-parent families, acknowledging their unique needs while providing services that enhanced their developmental outcomes and school readiness. The Community Garden Project, initiated by support group members, created shared space where families could grow food together while teaching children about nutrition, environmental stewardship, and collaborative work. The garden became a gathering place for informal socializing and mutual support, while producing fresh vegetables that supplemented family food budgets and enhanced nutrition for children in the program. The annual fundraising events organized by the support group created opportunities to raise money for community center programs while building public awareness about the resources and successes of single-parent families. The events challenged negative stereotypes about single parenthood while celebrating the strength, resilience, and contributions of families who were thriving despite challenging circumstances. The personal transformation that resulted from becoming part of this authentic community extended far beyond practical support and resource sharing to include fundamental changes in self-concept and life vision. The experience of being valued for contributions rather than pitied for circumstances created confidence and sense of purpose that had been missing during the period of crisis management and legal proceedings. The recognition that single parenthood could be chosen circumstance rather than unfortunate accident shifted perspective from survival mode to growth orientation, creating space for envisioning future possibilities that extended beyond simply managing immediate needs. The community provided evidence that thriving families could take many different forms, and that success could be measured by values like love, stability, and contribution, rather than conformity to traditional expectations. The children within the support group community demonstrated remarkable resilience and adaptability, showing that family structures based on mutual support and shared values could provide security and nurturing that rivaled or exceeded traditional nuclear family arrangements. Their success provided reassurance that Isabella would thrive within this chosen family network, while developing understanding that love and support could come from many different sources. The opportunity to expand my professional capabilities beyond traditional healthcare administration emerged 6 months after joining the single-parent support group, when Dr. Amanda Foster approached me with a proposal that would fundamentally reshape my understanding of what my career could become. Amanda had been observing my natural ability to coordinate complex logistics for the support group while managing multiple competing priorities, and she recognized skills that could be applied to healthcare consulting in ways that would create both financial opportunity and professional fulfillment. Amanda's pediatric practice had been struggling with inefficiencies in patient scheduling, insurance verification, and care coordination that were affecting both patient satisfaction and practice profitability. Her medical training had provided excellent clinical knowledge but limited preparation for the business management aspects of running a successful healthcare practice. She needed someone with healthcare administration expertise who could also understand the unique challenges facing medical professionals who were balancing patient care with practice management. The consulting proposal offered flexible scheduling that would accommodate my responsibilities to Isabella while providing substantially higher compensation than my current employee position at Meridian Healthcare Systems. More importantly, the work would allow me to apply my healthcare administration knowledge in innovative ways that could directly improve patient care outcomes while helping medical professionals build sustainable practices. The decision to accept Amanda's consulting offer required careful consideration of the risks and benefits associated with transitioning from stable employment to independent contracting. The financial security provided by employee benefits and regular paycheck would be replaced by variable income and responsibility for managing my own healthcare coverage, retirement planning, and business development activities. Margaret Williams, whose experience as a nurse practitioner included both employed and independent practice arrangements, provided valuable perspective on the practical considerations involved in healthcare consulting. Her advice emphasized the importance of building diverse client relationships that could provide income stability while developing expertise in specialized areas that would differentiate my services from other healthcare administration consultants. The business development skills required for successful consulting represented entirely new professional territory that would demand learning capabilities I had never developed during my employee career. Marketing, client relationship management, contract negotiation, and financial planning for irregular income streams would require knowledge and confidence that extended far beyond my existing expertise in project coordination and system implementation. The decision to pursue formal business education through evening classes at Riverside Community College represented investment in long-term career development while maintaining immediate income through continued employment at Meridian Healthcare Systems. The business administration courses would provide foundation knowledge for entrepreneurship while allowing gradual transition to consulting work without jeopardizing financial security for Isabella and me. The community college's evening program had been designed specifically for working adults who needed flexible scheduling and practical curriculum that could be applied immediately in professional settings. The instructors combined academic credentials with real-world business experience, creating a learning environment that emphasized practical application over theoretical knowledge. Professor Robert Chen, who taught the Healthcare Entrepreneurship course, recognized my unique combination of healthcare administration experience and single-parent perspective as potential foundation for developing consulting services that could serve underserved markets. His encouragement to consider specialization in helping small medical practices improve efficiency while accommodating family-friendly work arrangements reflected understanding that business success could align with personal values and life circumstances. The first consulting project with Amanda's pediatric practice provided immediate opportunity to apply classroom learning in real-world business situation while developing confidence in my ability to analyze complex organizational challenges and implement effective solutions. The project involved comprehensive assessment of practice operations, identification of inefficiency sources, and development of improvement strategies that could be implemented without disrupting patient care. The analysis revealed that Amanda's practice was losing significant revenue through inadequate insurance verification procedures, inefficient scheduling systems, and lack of follow-up protocols for patients who missed appointments or required additional services. These operational weaknesses were creating both financial losses and patient satisfaction problems that threatened the practice's long-term viability. The solution development process required creativity and innovation that extended beyond my previous experience with large healthcare systems to include understanding of the unique constraints and opportunities facing small medical practices. The recommendations needed to be cost-effective, easy to implement, and sustainable, without requiring extensive ongoing support or sophisticated technology investments. The implementation of improved scheduling software, insurance verification protocols, and patient communication systems resulted in a 23% increase in practice revenue within 3 months, while simultaneously improving patient satisfaction scores and reducing staff overtime requirements. The measurable success provided concrete evidence of the value that healthcare consulting could create for both medical professionals and their patients. The positive outcomes from Amanda's practice created referral opportunities with other healthcare providers who face similar operational challenges. Word-of-mouth recommendations within the local medical community generated consulting inquiries that exceeded my capacity to serve while maintaining my employee position at Meridian Healthcare Systems. The success of the healthcare consulting work revealed natural abilities that had remained dormant during my years as an employee in large organizational structures. The entrepreneurial skills required for independent consulting included strategic thinking, creative problem-solving, and client relationship management that drew on personal qualities I had not previously recognized or developed professionally. The financial education workshops led by Rachel Thompson provided essential knowledge for managing the irregular income and tax obligations associated with consulting work. Rachel's expertise in financial planning for self-employed individuals included strategies for income smoothing, business expense management, and retirement planning that could provide long-term security despite variable quarterly earnings. The legal education provided by the Riverside Legal Aid Clinic included guidance on contract development, liability protection, and intellectual property considerations that were essential for establishing legitimate consulting business. The legal knowledge helped me avoid common mistakes that could create professional liability or limit future business development opportunities. The marketing skills required for business development represented an entirely new professional domain that required learning both technical capabilities and communication strategies. The development of professional website, social media presence, and marketing materials required graphic design, copywriting, and brand development knowledge that extended far beyond my healthcare administration background. James Morrison's expertise in technology provided invaluable assistance with website development and social media management, demonstrating how community support network relationships could provide practical business development assistance while strengthening personal friendships. His willingness to share technical knowledge reflected the collaborative spirit that characterized our support group community. The professional networking activities required for business development initially felt uncomfortable and artificial, since my previous career advancement had occurred within established organizational structures, where relationships developed naturally through shared work responsibilities. Independent consulting required proactive relationship building with potential clients and referral sources who had no existing connection to my professional capabilities. The Riverside Chamber of Commerce Healthcare Committee provided structured networking environment where medical professionals and business service providers could develop mutually beneficial relationships. The monthly meetings created opportunities to present my consulting services while learning about the broader healthcare business community and emerging trends that could affect future consulting opportunities. The presentation skills required for effective networking and client development represented significant departure from my previous role as behind-the-scenes project coordinator, who worked primarily with technical teams and established clients. The consulting work required confidence in public speaking, persuasive communication, and professional presence that commanded respect from medical professionals and business decision-makers. The Toastmasters International chapter at the Community Center provided supportive environment for developing public speaking skills through regular practice and constructive feedback. The organization's structured approach to communication skill development helped me overcome anxiety about presenting to unfamiliar audiences, while building confidence in articulating complex ideas clearly and persuasively. The business plan development process required comprehensive analysis of market opportunities, competitive landscape, and financial projections that would demonstrate viability of full-time consulting practice. The plan needed to address realistic income requirements for supporting Isabella and me, while identifying growth strategies that could provide long-term career sustainability and advancement opportunities. The market research revealed significant demand for healthcare practice management consulting services among small and medium-sized medical practices in the Riverside area. Many healthcare providers were struggling with the same operational inefficiencies that had affected Amanda's practice, but lacked knowledge about available solutions or resources to implement improvements independently. The competitive analysis indicated that most healthcare consulting firms focused on large health system clients or highly technical specializations, creating market opportunity for services tailored to smaller practices with limited budgets and simpler organizational structures. My combination of healthcare administration expertise and practical understanding of resource constraints created competitive advantage in serving this underserved market segment. The financial projections indicated that full-time consulting could provide substantially higher income than my employee position, while offering flexibility to maintain active involvement in Isabella's care and development. The income potential would also allow me to contribute more significantly to household expenses, reducing dependence on Linda's continued housing assistance while building toward independent homeownership. The decision to transition from employee to full-time consultant required careful timing to ensure client-based development and financial reserves were adequate to support the change without creating economic instability. The transition plan involved gradual reduction of employee responsibilities while increasing consulting commitments over a 6-month period that would minimize financial risk while maintaining professional momentum. The notification to Meridian Healthcare Systems about my transition plans was received with understanding and support from colleagues who recognized the career advancement opportunity that independent consulting represented. The positive response included offers to serve as references for potential clients and suggestions for maintaining professional relationships that could provide future collaboration opportunities. The establishment of Chen Healthcare Consulting as formal business entity required legal documentation, insurance coverage, and accounting systems that would provide foundation for professional operations while protecting personal assets from business liability. The business formation process represented significant milestone in transitioning from employee mindset to entrepreneurial ownership of professional destiny. The first month of full-time consulting generated client inquiries that exceeded my initial projections, while providing immediate validation that the business concept addressed genuine market needs. The strong initial response created confidence that the career transition would provide both financial success and professional fulfillment, while allowing continued focus on single-parenthood priorities. The skills development process had transformed me from healthcare administration employee to healthcare business consultant, capable of analyzing complex organizational challenges and implementing solutions that created measurable value for clients. The transformation demonstrated that crisis circumstances could reveal hidden capabilities while providing motivation for professional growth that might never have occurred within comfortable employee arrangements. The breakthrough moment that established Chen Healthcare Consulting as a legitimate force in the regional healthcare market occurred 9 months after beginning full-time consulting work, when I received an invitation to present a comprehensive practice improvement proposal to the Riverside Medical Associates Partnership. The 7-physician multi-specialty practice represented the largest independent healthcare group in the region, and their decision to consider my services reflected growing recognition of my expertise within the local medical community. The opportunity had emerged through a referral from Dr. Amanda Foster, whose pediatric practice transformation had become a case study that generated significant attention among healthcare providers struggling with similar operational challenges. Amanda's willingness to share detailed financial results from our collaboration, including the sustained revenue improvements and enhanced patient satisfaction metrics, had created credibility that opened doors to more complex and lucrative consulting engagements. Dr. Michael Harrison, the senior partner at Riverside Medical Associates, had initially expressed skepticism about engaging a solo consultant rather than established healthcare consulting firm, with extensive resources and proven track record with large medical practices. His concerns reflected legitimate questions about whether my approach, which had proven successful with smaller practices, could address the complexity and scale of operational challenges facing a multi-specialty group with diverse service lines and competing priorities. The preliminary assessment of Riverside Medical Associates revealed organizational dysfunction that extended far beyond the operational inefficiencies that had characterized my previous client engagements. The practice suffered from poor communication between specialty departments, inadequate coordination of patient care across multiple providers, and financial management systems that failed to provide accurate profitability analysis for different service lines and physician productivity metrics. The diagnostic phase required comprehensive analysis of practice operations, including detailed review of financial statements, patient flow patterns, scheduling protocols, insurance procedures, and staff responsibilities across all specialty departments. The scope of analysis demanded systematic methodology and analytical rigor that exceeded anything I had previously undertaken as an independent consultant. The data collection process revealed that Riverside Medical Associates was operating at significantly reduced profitability compared to national benchmarks for similar multi-specialty practices. Revenue losses were occurring through multiple channels, including inefficient scheduling that created provider downtime, inadequate insurance verification that resulted in denied claims, and lack of coordination between departments that caused duplication of services and patient dissatisfaction. The financial analysis indicated that operational improvements could potentially increase practice revenue by 30 to 40% within 12 months, while simultaneously reducing staff overtime requirements and improving patient care coordination. The magnitude of potential improvements suggested that systematic organizational changes could transform the practice from marginally profitable operation to highly successful medical business that would provide enhanced income for physician partners while delivering superior patient care. The solution development process required innovation that combined proven small practice improvement strategies with organizational development principles appropriate for complex multi-provider environments. The recommendations needed to address cultural change management as well as operational efficiency improvements. Since the practice's problems stemmed from both systematic deficiencies and interpersonal dynamics that had developed over years of inadequate leadership and communication, the comprehensive improvement plan included implementation of integrated practice management software that would coordinate scheduling, billing, and clinical documentation across all specialty departments. The technology solution would eliminate information silos that had prevented effective patient care coordination while providing financial reporting capabilities that would enable data-driven decision-making about service line profitability and resource allocation. The staff training component of the improvement plan addressed communication protocols, customer service standards, and cross-departmental coordination procedures that would create cohesive organizational culture focused on patient satisfaction and operational excellence. The training program would require significant time investment from all practice personnel, but was essential for sustaining operational improvements beyond initial implementation period. The physician engagement strategy recognized that successful organizational change would require active participation and leadership from medical partners who had been operating as independent practitioners within loosely affiliated practice structure. The cultural transformation would demand consensus building and collaborative decision-making that had not previously characterized the practice's management approach. The presentation to the Riverside Medical Associates Partnership took place in their conference room on a Tuesday evening in November, with all 7 physicians present along with practice administrator Janet Coleman and senior staff members responsible for implementing any approved changes. The setting created formal atmosphere that reflected the significance of the engagement while emphasizing my professional credibility and the comprehensive nature of the proposed solutions. The presentation began with detailed analysis of current practice performance compared to industry benchmarks, demonstrating the financial impact of operational inefficiencies, while providing context for understanding the improvement potential that systematic changes could achieve. The data presentation established credibility through objective analysis while creating urgency for addressing identified problems. The solution presentation emphasized measurable outcomes and realistic implementation timelines that would minimize disruption to patient care while creating sustainable improvements in practice efficiency and profitability. The recommendations addressed both immediate operational changes and long-term strategic development that would position the practice for continued growth and market competitiveness. The questions from physician partners revealed sophisticated understanding of healthcare business challenges and appropriate skepticism about consultant promises that seemed unrealistic or based on theoretical rather than practical knowledge. Their inquiries tested my understanding of medical practice complexities and my ability to adapt proven solutions to their specific organizational circumstances and market environment. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the practice's internal medicine specialist, asked particularly challenging questions about patient care coordination and quality metrics that would ensure operational improvements did not compromise clinical outcomes or patient satisfaction. Her concerns reflected appropriate medical professional priorities while acknowledging that business efficiency improvements needed to enhance rather than detract from quality healthcare delivery. The discussion of implementation timelines and resource requirements revealed the partnership's commitment to thorough evaluation of the proposal, while recognizing that significant organizational change would require substantial time and financial investment. The physicians demonstrated business sophistication that extended beyond clinical expertise to include understanding of operational management and financial planning considerations. The partnership's decision to approve the comprehensive improvement plan represented validation of both my analytical capabilities and the practical value of my consulting approach. The engagement would provide substantially higher compensation than my previous client work, while creating opportunities for professional development and industry recognition that could establish Chen Healthcare Consulting as recognized leader in regional healthcare business consulting. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.